Yeah, and we want to, I'll just explain it. I think it's pretty simple. So we have 3 questions that we're going to ask of every single platform, and we're going to go in the order, in the alphabetical order that we did from very beginning. So we'll do, or basically what's on my sheets. We'll do Jason and Rebecca, Mara and Lindley, and Harry and Ronnie in that order. So yeah, go ahead and get in order those questions. And so we have 3, and you will have 2 minutes to respond. We'll ask both parties to go up to the platform or to the podium. You can decide how you want to speak. One person can speak the whole time. You can take turns, however you choose to do so, okay? So that is the first 3. We then have a series of 6 questions per platform. These are generally unique questions. Some overlap platform to platform. And we are going to call you up one at a time to answer those questions. What we want you to do is alternate between president and vice president to answer those questions, so you all have your time at the podium. And you can decide with the first question who is going to take that one first, and then we'll just expect that you rotate for the next question. And we will go down the list. We'll do all the question 1s for each party, and then go back and do the question 2s, etc. And those are 1 minute, and there's 6 questions, and you'll alternate. So, and no rebuttals for any of this, right? So it's kind of a lightning round. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and start. I'm sorry, 2 minutes on the front. Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes for the first set of questions, and you will each have these questions to answer. So there's no rebuttal. So we will start with this platform here. So Jason and Rebecca will take the first question, and then we will move down the line. And so you will take the same question, and then you'll have the opportunity to answer the same question. So everybody has 2 minutes on these sets of questions, right? And you all get to answer, okay? All right, so out of the gate, question number 1, and this question will be the same for everybody. You have 2 minutes, and you decide who speaks. How would you approach continuing large projects within PSG that have carried over from the previous year and ensuring that all the branches and committees within PSG, such as the board of directors, continue their passions and initiatives?
So I know I alluded to this earlier, but I believe there's a lot of overlap between some of the initiatives PSG has been working on over the years and what other groups have been working on. So specifically, one of those was increasing the well-being of students in residence halls through providing them products they might need. So as I mentioned, spring 2022, PSG passed a resolution to get safe sex supplies within the residence halls. And I think this can really be expanded through some of the groups that this might be relevant to. Residence Hall Association, we applied for an SFED grant about a year ago and got it, and have distributed over 9,000 condoms within the residence halls over the last semester during my presidency. And I think we can work together with some of the groups that this is relevant to, like the LGBT Center, RHA, individual dorms, health groups on campus, and PSG to work together to really solve some of these big initiatives that we've been working on as a campus.
And I know we speak on communication to other organizations on campus, PSG, RHA, communicating between the two. I think that would be huge, especially in regards to the SWANA initiative, because our RHA president in previous years has worked extensively on this issue, and I know PSG has been in communications with Johnny and Estelle too, the president and vice president of SWANA, so we just kind of want to combine those platforms to get a greater audience to see the need for their cultural center and the dedication it takes and the dedication that they put in to make this happen.
Yeah. And I think the PSG has a lot of really great long-term initiatives, such as working with SWANA within the cultural center, and I think we want to play a strong role in supporting a lot of those initiatives that might take longer years, in addition to doing our main project of expanding the Lifeline Hall.
These large platforms could definitely assist in getting exposure for these organizations so that they are benefited here on campus and seen and represented.
All right, same question for Mara and Lindley. I'll reread it. How would you approach continuing large projects within PSG that have carried over from the previous year and ensuring that all the branches and committees within PSG, such as the board of directors, continue their passions and initiatives?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first. One initiative that we're really passionate about, like I said, is mental health. PSG has been a partner with Mental Health Action Week for the past several years. We had our biggest Mental Health Action Week ever this last year. It was a great success. We ended with a cultural block party, which got a lot of attention and reception. And that's something that we definitely want to see the continuation of as MHA becomes its own club next spring. In terms of supporting PSG and its groups within, Mara and I want to work on some more collaboration between the branches. Like we said, PSG is a very large organization, and sometimes those branches don't have an opportunity to interact. so we want to facilitate some more bonding, some alumni events within PSG. We have a lot of alumni who do really great things, and some networking within that.
And then one other thing we want to work on is I have been in collaboration with the RISE Club and pairing the Purdue Disability Ad Hoc with them because they did a audit of buildings and saying which ones are disability accessible or not. And I want to continue that in pairing the Disability Ad Hoc Committee through PSG with other clubs that are also doing similar work.
Okay, thank you. All right. Harry and Ronnie, same question. I'll reread for you as well. How would you approach continuing large projects within PSG that have carried over from the previous year and ensuring that all the branches and their committees within PSG, such as the board of directors, continue their passions and initiatives?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and a lot of not being a part of PSG, we need to trust that PSG is actively doing what their mission statement is to help support the students, and we need to trust that these initiatives that they're working on currently, that they plan on sticking to their guns and keeping to them. If they agree that these are important initiatives and that they're going to keep pushing them, we are in full support of them. We're going in there and having to trust that these people want to do good things for each other. But specifically regarding stuff like mental health and some of the things the other parties touched on, we absolutely agree with them. It's very important. But Ronnie actually has a personal thing that is extremely personal to us that we want to try to work on.
Yeah, so regarding mental health, for like the grievance period, when you submit like a death in your family to Purdue, they give you a certain amount of days depending on how you're related to that family member, or also depending on location. So if you're out of state, you get like maybe an extra day, I think it is. But for them to say like come back to school in like maybe 3-5 days is just kind of an issue, because how can you put a timeline on someone's grieving? Like that's just not really fair. So kind of fixing that so we can just better help people that are going through hard times and not making them come back to school immediately because they're probably not ready to get back in the full swing and perform academically and all of that. So fixing and doing what we can about the grievance thing would be a huge, huge thing.
Freshman year, we both had issues with it. My grandfather passed away, and I had to deal with them giving me issues about, well, he's not dead yet, but he's in hospice. So I couldn't get them a death certificate in the obituary to prove it, and that was extremely troubling. Personally, Ronnie has a similar experience that I don't know if she necessarily wants to speak on.
Yeah, it was my end of my sophomore year. I was actually sitting in the office. It was the day after, not even 24 hours had gone by, so we didn't have the obituary paper, and they asked me like for proof, and I said, me sitting in front of you crying is proof. I'm not making up this, and so
We trust
we want to fix that.
everything they're doing is great currently, but that's something we really, really want to push in personal.
We're at time. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, this is question number 2. We're going to do the exact same thing. So this time, though, Mara and Lindley will be up first. Exact same thing with different first speakers, okay? And so your question is, Purdue is the only Big Ten school without a climate action plan. What will you do to change that, and is that a priority for your campaign?
So I actually am a member of the University Sustainability Committee. So we have been working on doing an audit of Purdue's systems within power, water, holistically Purdue's energy. So I am currently working with several professors in that endeavor to try to figure out where Purdue stands, what % of our energy is renewable, and where we can go from there. Some other ideas that Mara and I have proposed are sustainability within the dining courts. The dining courts have already moved towards not using single-use plastic containers anymore, but there's obviously strides that we can continue to make to use more reusable containers within the dining halls, rather than disposing of all of that. We can also cut down on food waste. This is a commonly known statistic, but a third of the food in the U.S. is thrown away, and Purdue is part of that problem. And so that's something that we can work on, about cutting down on portions while also making sure that our students are fed to reduce unwanted waste.
Okay, very good. All right, Harry, Ronnie, you're up. Same question. I'll reread it. Purdue is the only Big Ten school without a climate action plan. What will you do to change that, and is that a priority for your campaign?
It is a priority, but I'd be lying if I told you that it was one of our top priorities. Our top priority is financial education. That is what's personal to us, and that's what we're running on. I'm not here to play politics, even though we are playing politics. I'm here to tell you that we don't have an actionable plan. Straight up, we don't have one on this. There are issues such as recycling. Purdue doesn't recycle. If you ever notice, they're all black bags. They go to the same place. I don't know why they have the two bins. So there's personal things. We need to get more educated and more informed on what these committees that they just spoke of that they're on are doing, looking at the audits. I focus on what I have access to currently, and I mean, I don't know, you guys are generally speaking, all students here, how much access do you have to all the different Purdue resources regarding our water, our recycling amounts, and things to that extent, how much actual food waste? I mean, we need to see the data, we need to see the stats, and that just hasn't been accessible to us. I mean, obviously, once we get in a position, we are going to work and find out exactly what the numbers are so we can come up with an actionable plan. But without an actionable plan, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say that we have step-by-step what we're gonna do currently.
Okay. Yeah, if you'd like to speak, please do.
Thank you. And also, just an idea right now, the amount of trash that we produce is a lot. I mean, I remember my friend accidentally threw something away in the dumpster. She had to go dumpster diving there, and it was gross. And that made me, like, there's so much trash produced by all of the dorms, especially. There's constantly being, like, so many bags of full trash. And so maybe, potentially, you could start there with the dorms and the freshmen, is providing them with just a few, like, utensils. That way they can reuse those. And it then is promoting, instead of having a ton of plastic forks, paper plates, even though it is a lot more convenient, and I also sometimes will use those, but providing just those few utensils, plates to the freshmen to reuse, that can maybe potentially save some trash there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jason and Rebecca, you're on. Repeat the question. Purdue's the only Big Ten school without a climate action plan. What will you do to change that, and is that a priority for your campaign?
Yeah, so sustainability is really important to us and me specifically. I actually do research within sustainable energy storage, and that's what I want to lead my career in. Within RHA, we've led an initiative over the past year or so to work with the hall clubs that we govern to promote action plans for them to make their events more sustainable. So every hall is a hall club, and they put on a lot of events throughout the year and work with their RAs to put on a ton of events. And we've worked with them to create action plans so that they can make their own events sustainable. And I believe with student government, we could work with the SAO and hopefully institute this across a range of student activities and organizations, SAO, and institute this with other students, and work with administrators to create climate action plan.
Yeah, so in regards to our conversations that we have held within the Residential Hall Association, each of the hall club presidents meet up at Presidential Roundtable. This is where we have conversations with UR, dining, so forth, higher ups. And so we've had these conversations with dining, and we've seen these conversations about sustainability in the dining halls. And we definitely are ready to take part in that, ready to take action on that.
Okay, very good. All right, Harry and Ronnie, you are up. This is the third question. All right. With PSG being a large organization, stepping into upper leadership comes with a sharp learning curve. What have you done to prepare yourself to understand PSG structures, rules, and culture?
We love this question. We've been not sleeping, quite literally, attempting to educate ourselves as fully as we can on this. The first thing that we really did was go through the PSG website, just to simply learn the basics before the petitioning period. I mean, just to look at that, I don't know exactly the hierarchy structure and the breakdown of the president and the VP and their positions under that, and everyone that they have to manage and help work with and try to support. We also then decided to go through and see all the initiatives trying to be passed this year that have been passed, and we can see all the appointments of everyone. You can see every single piece of legislation that the Senate has currently passed, been tabled and whatnot. We can see who was on that and what they were trying to do and what's been trying to be pushed. So that was a long time, because you guys have done a lot this year so far, and really, I mean, that was almost annoying to do. But then beyond that, we had to go through and we watched Senate videos from years past so we could see, because we had never been to the Senate. So we went through, we watched, and saw exactly how it went.
Yeah, and not being on PSG prior, I mean, this is going to be a huge learning experience for us, but we want to come in and absorb and get as much knowledge about PSG, not come in and start changing everything. But not being in PSG and not having that leadership on that doesn't mean we haven't had leadership experiences outside of that. So within our ROTC, that's something that I'm heavily involved in. And last semester, my leadership position, I had one almost every single semester, and I've been able to, I did listen, hire people above me, get that information, disseminate below, collect a ton of information from the people underneath me, get that, and I was always constantly communicating back and forth. I learned a lot of leadership qualities through that experience. So we may not have been on PSG prior, but we do leadership opportunities, experience to bring, and we're eager to learn too.
I mean, we listed some of our organizations, alumni relations for the Real Estate Society, alumni relations for my house. We made subcommittees under that to help delegate the work. And so
We've got
we know what
time.
we're doing.
We've called time. Thank you so much for that response. All right, Jason and Rebecca, you're up with the same question. I'll reread it. With PSG being a large organization, stepping into upper leadership comes with a sharp learning curve. What have you done to prepare yourself to understand PSG structure, rules, and culture?
Yeah, so we familiarized ourselves with PSG over the last year. We've attended some Senate meetings. I'm actually a member of the SOGA and SFAB board, which is a part of PSG. And within our own organization, RHA, it works in a similar fashion where we have senators that represent university residences, and they come and speak, and we vote on legislation. We're familiar with parliamentary procedure. And I think within the role, I want to become, and Becca and I want to become the people that come to with their issues. As Purdue Student Government and the President VP, we want to become the people that come to with their issues, and we can help them solve them.
Yeah, so just expanding on that, I am VP of RHA, so I do oversee the Senate. I oversee parliamentary procedure. I make sure that they uphold Robert Rules of Order. It's not as extensive as the way that PSG upholds it, and our system is not as extensive. However, within our leadership roles, we do have similar procedures, we do have similar guidelines, and we are very excited to hold meetings with those in PSG to learn further about how their structure works and to not step on any toes.
Very good, thank you. Mara and Lindley, you are up now, and I will reread it. With PSG being a large organization, stepping into upper leadership comes with a sharp learning curve. What have you done to prepare yourself to understand PSG's structures, rules, and culture?
Yeah, so as you all know, I've been in student government all 2 years of being on campus. My RA last year was actually the student body president, Andrew Jensen, and he got me into BOD last year. And pretty much he pretty much told me everything because he kind of wanted me to go up into Senate and stuff, and he kind of educated me on the work. And now in Senate, we have also talked to the cabinet members, and last night we had a conversation about how it's pretty much a transition period of the semester. So as much as we want to get immediately started, we understand it's a 40-hour week. We understand the hours that are put in and what it's going to be like. And just being prepared for that and understanding, at least having a little bit of background, as we have had conversations with different organizations, and we've passed bills. We understand what it's like on Senate and in BOD, so we have that background.
Yeah, that's something I definitely want to continue to emphasize is we have the background of being at PSG. We know how to pass legislation, both Mara and I have done that. We know the workings of BOD. I've sat in on judicial court meetings. I know what those are like. And I've read the entire Constitution multiple times, which is kind of a feat in and of itself if you know how long the PSG Constitution is. It's an organization that has a lot of ins and outs, a lot of really small things that, as has been said, it's a steep learning curve. It takes a while to learn them. But Mara and I are committed and have been committed the past few years to already having that experience be part of our time at PSG.
All right, thank you very much. All right, that concludes our 2-minute responses where you all answered the same question. We're now moving into what I like to call our lightning round. So how this will work is I will ask the first question, and we'll start with Jason and Rebecca. These questions have been put in order, or they've been put directly directed at your platform. Let's just say that, okay? They're all different, and so there may be a little bit of overlap, but they're mostly different. On this first question, you can decide who gets to answer, so only one of you will answer, and you will have 1 minute to do so. So I'm guessing based on the type of question, right, you decide who starts. But then you alternate, so whoever does this time, the next person, or the other person does, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and get started, so you have 1 minute. How would your public exam platform differ from boiler exams and weekly joys?
Okay, so I think it's just sort of a clarification. Boiler exams exist mainly within engineering courses, and I want to advocate for creating a past exam archive. A lot of other institutions that you may be familiar with have created things like this, and they've adopted this model, like MIT OpenCourseWare, and they publicize all their lectures, exams, and homeworks, and I think this really creates a lot of accessibility with our students. This is a undertaking, and there's gonna be a lot of hesitancy with professors to adopt this model and publicize their things. But I think this is something students overwhelmingly support, and it's gonna increase accessibility and promote positive education on our campus a lot. Specifically within the math department, a lot of you might be familiar with Chenflix. It's extremely popular, and when given the choice, students very much opt to watch pre-recorded lectures as opposed to going to the 300-person lectures where they might not have the same intimacy they get with watching the lecture. So I want to advocate and begin work on this and hopefully create that resource for students.
Thank you. All right. We are now going to Mara and Lindley. Go ahead up to the podium and you'll have 1 minute. Again, you choose who gets to go first. What actions have you taken in your time as PSG senators to expand awareness of PSG legislation and make resources more accessible to students of the general body?
So for me right now, it's obviously communication through everyone I know. That's the main thing we can do. I try to educate as many people as possible, and I have had multiple people come up to me and say, oh, I never knew this happened, and I appreciate now you telling. And like Harry said previously, social media is huge. And reposting things that we're doing, advocating, reposting on your story, talking to the exponent, things like that, just to get people to know and understand what is happening.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. Our next question for Harry and Ronnie. And you choose who speaks first. 1 minute. Given that you want to increase the financial literacy of the school, how do you plan to implement that, and what ought to take a back seat while this is highlighted?
I don't think anything specifically needs to take a back seat, but this is actually way simpler than I had previously imagined when I had been thinking about this a very long time ago to implement. I mean, this has been something that has been brewing for me since the 3rd grade, to be honest, when I realized our education system hasn't changed in 150 years. And then again, when I took AP Economics and realized that this isn't teaching me anything about personal finance. So I went about talking to Kevin, the student board trustee member, and Andrew Jensen, and they both told me what I had assumed. It's a matter of money. You need to get donations from an alum. It's getting the board on board, because the board, appointed by Governor Holcomb, changes the curriculum. They get to make those overarching choices, and they're going to laugh you out of there unless you have money. But in terms of talking with those alumni, we are in talks with alumni whose names don't want to be shared, but there are many alumni that want to see students successful and would happily donate to this initiative to then get it done.
Thank you. All right. I think Rebecca's taken this next one. Am I correct? All right. Question 2. You talked about, oops. A little bit of AV here. Okay. We got it. Okay. You talked about expanding the Indiana Lifeline Law. What exactly do you mean by expanding it? What are the current shortcomings of the law? And we'll stop there, because you only have a minute.
So I know actual steps were mentioned. We could speak endlessly on actual steps that we have taken towards this. We have spoken to University of Southern India, we have spoken to Notre Dame, we have spoken to IU, we have spoken to IU RHA to try and communicate this across Indiana to see that this is tangible. We can change Indiana legislation. Currently, it only protects the caller when students are in a state of intoxication and they are in need of medical attention. It only protects the caller. It does not protect the person in need of medical attention. We are trying to expand it to protect the person in need of medical attention. We've spoken to Senator James Barrett. We've spoken to the IU Police Department to see how it is handled on their campus and how they represent it. We've spoken to Brett Hadley. We've spoken to David Rosenthal. We've spoken to the people that initially put this forth, initially proposed this, so we can propose an amendment to it to make this happen again.
Thank you. All right, Lindley, you're up. What are you doing to increase transparency, and what specific policy issues will you enact to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. Transparency, this kind of goes back to the previous question that Mara answered, but this is something we have heavily been working on in the committee that I'm a part of, which is the Campus and Student Resource Affairs Committee. We created something that Mara mentioned previously called the SARU survey, which students can access to submit any issue that they find needs addressed on Purdue's student campus. We're also going to work with the technology committee to make the website clearer, make it easier for people to find things, to find what work Senate has done in the past. We're also going to work on cleaning up the emails. I know as a freshman, I personally found frustrating that they appeared as one tiny line in my email. We're going to fix that. so that students can be very clear about what we're doing, what resources we have available.
Thank you. Ronnie, I think you're up. All right. So this question, for those who are not in PSG, why do you feel you're qualified to run such a large and extensive organization?
So growing up, I watched a ton of motivational videos, and one of them was called The Shark Mindset by Walter Bond. And in this, he basically says like to adapt the shark mindset is to think, act, and behave like a shark. And a shark, if you guys don't know this, a shark actually dies if it stops swimming. It has to like constantly moving forward. And so from a young age, this has been a mindset that I've adapted, and I'm constantly looking for ways to grow, improve myself. How can I be better today than I was yesterday? What am I doing to take me out of my comfort zone to ultimately gain and grow as a person and unlock different abilities and capabilities I didn't know I had before. So yeah, I was on PSG, but I think taking myself out of my comfort zone and being here and having done that my whole life and having succeeded each time I've done it, I'll do the same in this position as well.
Thank you. All right, Jason, I think the next one is for you. So this question, how can Purdue students, especially international and out-of-state ones, change Indiana law through PSG?
So, of course, as students, we can't write and propose state legislation. The role we play with amending the Indiana Lifeline Law is raising a lot of statewide advocacy. So, back in a little over a decade ago, with Brett Hiley, the past PSG president, he created a large student-led coalition around Indiana. He met with a lot of the other student governments at other schools and created a really large public backing for this legislation that really persuaded Indiana legislatures to vote on this and get the vote to get it passed. And I think that's the role we play now. We've been working with Senator James Merritt, Becca said, and we're going to find someone who can propose this legislation for us, and our job as students is to create a really large public backing and let our legislatures know how students feel about this and the effect it can have on our universities.
Very good, thanks. Mara, you're up next. How can we support women in leadership?
Yeah, so obviously, so one thing I've done backtracking in high school is my high school actually did not have a sexual assault policy. So there were some instances that happened and the men did not get in trouble because there was no policy. So recognizing that our university as Purdue, there's a inequality of men to women, and just understanding that we all are equal and that we all should be able to pursue the same choices, and understanding and giving that equity I talked about earlier, equity, giving that little stepping stool for women, saying as it is a little uneven and we do not have that population, and understanding and recognizing that we all should have the same chances, and as me and Lily are both women, that just recognizing and giving that inspiration to other women that they can do it and we can have an entire, two candidates that are women.
Thank you. Harry, you're up. Okay, so this question, Purdue graduate student government has reserved several seats for cultural centers in their governing body, but have had trouble filling them. Knowing this, are there any alternatives that you have for increasing diversity and advocating for diversity in this organization and on our campus?
For PSG specifically, okay. I didn't know that they'd been having trouble filling them. I didn't know that was something they were doing, and so that's why we thought, why not have it as an additional initiative for PSG and the undergrads. From talking with representatives in some of these different cultural organizations, I truly don't believe that will be an issue. A lot of times they have quite literally more students than some of the colleges that are being represented by Purdue Student Government currently, and they want to be able to have access to Purdue Student Government. They want access to funding, they want help and support clearly with their initiatives. So I personally don't believe that that will be an issue when you go to them. I mean, they're ambitious people all over. I don't see why those specific organizations might not have that ambition to join and try to help spread awareness. And so I don't believe that will necessarily be a big issue.
Thank you. All right, I think Rebecca, you're up. All right, so your question, for those who are not in PSG, why do you feel you're qualified to run such a large and extensive organization?
So I do have extensive leadership experience through RHA. I also am very passionate about leadership. I have done leadership activities since God knows when, but through RHA, I am the current vice president. I was an RHA senator prior. I am the Dewey governor of Windsor, and I have started a lot of initiatives through the Residential Hall Association. I have started Hygiene Handout. I have passed legislation in regards to a resolution to support the implementation of an accessibility ramp on 3rd Street. Hopefully we're gonna get that going. That was sent to Purdue Building and Grounds. We're gonna be reviewing it next week. So we'll go out there with Purdue Building and Grounds and see where the ramp will be implemented. If it is a possibility, as that is a closed down street and it's just walking traffic in a bike lane, and it's ridiculous that if you do need an accessibility ramp, either you have to go to either crosswalk all the way down by Honors or all the way down by the co-rec. So yeah, just writing up resolutions, writing up bills, which I do have experience with. I do have extensive leadership experience, and I am very passionate about it. So.
Thank you. All right, Lindley, you are up. How do you plan on using the Purdue Student Supreme Court when talking about advocacy and increasing awareness for parking? Is there anything that you would do differently with PSSC to achieve your goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So Purdue, the Student Supreme Court has a really close relationship with parking. They meet with them every week to adjudicate student tickets. And that relationship, sometimes good, it is sometimes not good. And we want to take that relationship and we want to strengthen it in such a way that it benefits students more. Currently, the parking system is very much structured so that it benefits the monetary gains of Purdue Parking. Purdue Parking is self-funded by giving out tickets as well as a number of other factors. And not that that's not how it should be, but we can dedicate that more to students, making it so that students who need to commute to campus for various reasons, whether that be work or classes, can do so without the fear of being ticketed. So I think promoting that and supporting the Student Supreme Court as they work with Purdue Parking is going to be one of our goals.
Thank you. All right, Ronnie, you are up. So what might you do differently if you're elected into office to increase marketing efforts in order to achieve higher turnout in future PSG elections?
Yeah, so you can't engage in something that you don't even know about. So with that, I think emails are great, but I personally don't read every email that I get. I have like 10,000 emails on my Gmail that I haven't read, and with Outlook, Brightspace spams me every night, so I don't even read or see all of those. And so I think figuring out a way, I mean, emails are great to get everything out for those that do read it or the chance that you do see that, but getting all the information out to Instagram, Snapchat, and having some sort of committee or people that specifically are supposed to put that information out there on those different platforms that are interacted with a lot more than email. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. All right, Jason, I think you're up next. All right. So why are you choosing to go through PSG to help you get this legislation passed? Why not RHA?
So we've worked within RHA over the past 7 months to amend the housing respective portion of this. So within Purdue, we have the Purdue Medical Amnesty Policy, and this is similar to the Indiana Lifeline Law, but it's within Purdue policy. University residences did not have any policy similar to the Purdue Medical Amnesty Policy, and people could still get housing sanctions when they seek medical attention for like those issues we talked about earlier. We wrote a resolution to amend that within housing, and we now see a really unique opportunity to make this change across Indiana, and we don't think RHA is the platform to do it. Back 13 years ago, Brett Hiley was the PSG president, and I think that platform really allowed him to work with senators and other universities to make this initiative a reality.
Okay, thank you. Mara, you're up. So your question, what is a place you have not succeeded as a senator, and how would you improve on it in your presidential role?
Yeah, so right now, I'm working on a bill for every 2 years to have a university holiday on election day. Right now, it's taken much longer than I've expected, and some of that is on me, as meeting times as I'm busy, meeting times I haven't been able to prioritize. And so I think that's one thing is prioritizing every meeting, because that bill has definitely taken a backseat, but it's still my priority. It just hasn't as much been something that is on the forefront as this is taking my priority. So prioritizing everything equally is something that I would work on.
Thank you. All right, Harry, you're up. Okay. So So not having PSG experience is this writer's concern. So how would the student body vote for someone who doesn't have the experience in PSG?
Yeah, I mean, great question. It's a valid concern that we've been addressing a couple times, but I'll go into it a little bit more. So I don't have any direct PSG background. It's as simple as that. But we have been going through the steps to educate ourselves, speaking to the right people. I spoke with past President Jensen over a year ago, and he was the one who had told me to run. He said, Harry, you've done all the other things right. You're involved with different organizations. You get up into those positions, and you make things actually happen. You're a doer. You make things happen. And so I don't think necessarily I need any PSG experience to be able to go in and meet the right people, find out what help they need, what support they need, and make actionable goals that we can make things happen with. I'm not here just talking to a wall. I'm here with plans to get things done, and whether I'm on PSG or not, I get things done.
All right, thank you. All right, Rebecca, you're back up. Your question: what Purdue internal policies would you implement in advance of working on the Indiana General Lifeline Law?
I would say just communicating a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of misinformation issues. So maybe a general platform to communicate to students to make that easier. Communication regarding policies like the Indiana Lifeline Law is important, and medical emergency policies, so students have that clarification. Or a communication platform in regards to raising awareness for things like testing accommodations and how to get access to those. Things like accessibility initiatives, what's going on campus, what's happening on campus, just communicating that to students, and how students can get involved in those initiatives, how students can help out, what students need from the Purdue student body and from Purdue in general.
Thank you. All right, Lindley, I think you are next. All right, are you planning on doing anything involving the cultural centers?
Yeah, absolutely. This was something we mentioned earlier, but I was in RHA for 2 years as an administrator in my freshman and sophomore years. And as part of that time, SWANA came to our minds, where they mentioned to us that they did not have demographic representation on Purdue surveys, and that they did not have a cultural center, even though they have about 2,000 students here on campus. And so over the past 2 years at RHA, we planned some events with them, we worked with them to raise awareness, but as a part of PSG, I think we can do more than that. The SWANA Cultural Center needs about $15 million in funding for a center, and PSG can very easily give away some of its funding to help do that. That's something we very much want to be a part of. Our cultural block party, like I mentioned earlier, was a great success for MHA this year, and I think doing more events like that will also be beneficial.
Thank you. All right, Ronnie, you get the very last question. You are up. And your question is, how do you plan to spend the PSG budget to achieve your talking points throughout the debate?
Yeah, so I don't exactly know all the breakdown of the budget, but I know that there's some money that had gone to, like a prom, I think is what it was. And I think relooking that budget and finding where those gaps are, where there's things that maybe sacrificing things like the prom to then put that money towards our goals of literacy, education, and stuff like that. So just better using the funds that we do have to then push those for the betterment of the student body.
Thank you. Let's give it up for all of our candidates. Wow. I think everyone did exceptionally well on the spot. These questions were hard questions.